Stop paying for Scrivener or Microsoft Word. If you're a novel writer, these 6 free tools will do everything you need and more. I know because I use them myself. If you're new here, hi, I'm Katri, I'm your new writing bestie, and this is Protagonist Crafts, the place for people who are kind of obsessed with that whole writing thing. I know from researching your Google searches that finding the right software or app for writing your novel is a pressing concern for many of you writers. And I know from personal experience that the perfect writing tool doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. Now, you don't need a subscription to Microsoft Word, and you might not even need Scrivener. And I know I probably look like someone who exclusively uses a typewriter, but I promise that I've got personal experience with all of these tools, and that experience I'm going to share with you. So I didn't just Google free writing tools and then make a video based on that. No, none of that here. Anyway, let's get started. This first tool you're probably all familiar with, and it's Google Docs. If you've ever used a word processor, you know how to use Google Docs, and you can use it on your computer and on your mobile, your tablet, and probably your smart fridge as well. I don't know. Because it's essentially just a word processor that lives, somewhere in the cloud. There aren't a lot of features there besides, writing, but you can use the document's outline to, that's right, outline your story. You don't need to know chapter titles when you're writing your first draft. You can just name your scenes, whatever, and then you can easily find them. However, if you want to rearrange anything, you're just going to have to copy and paste. But what Google Docs is fantastic for is getting feedback and collaboration. And actually, giving feedback is what I use Google Docs for with my clients. And if you would like thorough commentary on your novel manuscript, let me know and I'll let you know how we can do that. I promise I'm better at writing than I am at talking. It's very easy to leave comments if you got beta readers, and you can even collaborate with someone and write together. And one of the best things about Google Docs is that you don't have to worry about saving. It's going to save automatically, and then you can access it with your other device. The downside of using Google Docs to write your novel is that it gets very laggy with longer documents, so you might not want to use it for writing your entire novel. You can use it just to outline it, and I actually have a template for that, so you might want to check that out. The next tool in my toolbox is Notion, and it's not specifically made for writers, but it's great for research and organization. And yes, it does have quite a big learning curve, but you can figure out what kind of a setup would work for you by watching tutorials on YouTube or by getting someone else's template. Do I have a template for that? Of course I do. In my novel writing hub, you can find pretty much everything that you need for every step of the novel writing process, including all kinds of trackers and workbooks. But you can also use something much more simple like this scene tracker, which you can see I've used for planning my own story. And you can add as much information there as you want. And what I've just done here is created this scene list, and I can easily rearrange it and refer back to it on my computer or on my phone. Granted, I'm not exactly in love with the Notion app. I think it's kind of clunky to use, at least on Android, but it's still easy enough that I can just check what I had planned. I've also created this novel planner where you can plan your scenes, characters, and settings. And I'm fully planning to use this for my next novel, which is going to be historical fiction, and it's going to take some more research than my previous novels. So yeah, Notion is very useful for doing research like world building or like researching, like historical fiction, for example. And you can make it work the way that your brain works. So you can have text, links, pictures, screenshots, all kinds of nifty things. You can keep it all in one place and access it easily. And yes, you could write your entire novel on Notion as well. Like you can see here where I got my scenes, I could just click from here and it opens a new window thing. And I could write the scene there. But of course, exporting the writing would be a bit more complicated. So I think I would just have to copy and paste each of these scenes separately. So yeah, it might or might not be worth it. But again, what works for your brain? Notion is fantastic for that. You can make it work for you. There is a big learning curve and you could get easily overwhelmed by it. So if you don't have the time to learn something new, maybe don't pick this one. And one more thing that Notion is great for is tracking your progress. So you could create some kind of a word count tracker so you could see how you're making progress with your fantastic writing. Moving on. yWriter has specifically been made for writers by a writer and a programmer. And according to its creator, Simon Haynes, it only has features that an actual writer would use and not just nonsense that a marketer would think, but this is cool, we need to add this. And I love this tool. I use it as soon as I've outlined my stories. You could use it to outline your stories as well, but I prefer to outline by hand. And yWriter might not look very modern or swanky, but it's extremely functional and very lightweight. So even if you've got an older laptop, it's probably going to work wonderfully. And I can't remember how I found it, but I was probably Googling like Scrivener alternatives. And this is a great alternative. And you can plan your characters and settings and important items of your story on yWriter too. But personally, I don't typically spend a lot of time planning those things like in writing because I usually see them in my head so clearly, so I don't need to take the time to like plan them. It's still useful to have though, and I have used these features previously. There's a lot of nitty-gritty details about your scenes that you can track, but you don't have to use all or any of them. Personally, I just write and edit my scenes on yWriter, and it makes it so easy to just have like these placeholders there, and it's easy to get like this bird's eye view of your story, like, well, there's stuff happening here, and here are these blanks, but I know I can fill them out later. And you can move your scenes around, and you could easily write them out of order. That doesn't personally work for me. Like I always work in order when writing, not necessarily when editing, but still a useful feature to have even if I don't use it often. What I don't like is that you have to have chapters first before you can have scenes, but I don't think of them as chapters because thinking of chapters before you've even written your novel is not useful. We can talk about why in a different video, but I just think of story structure when I create my chapters. So it's like the very beginning, and then the big problem comes, and then reacting to the problem. I use those and then put the scenes in there. And one of the very few cons besides that is that it just doesn't look very modern or sleek. But again, it might not matter to you. It definitely doesn't matter to me. And the next tool in our toolbox, which is also the next tool I would use in my writing process, and that is LibreOffice Writer. It's just like Word except free. So like yWriter, it doesn't look very flashy, but it gets the job done. And if you have used Word, you know exactly how to use this one. So after I've written my scenes on yWriter and I know that plot is solid and I don't need to move anything around, I export my writing to LibreOffice Writer. And then I make a save on my Dropbox folder so that it automatically backs it up every time I save. So I won't have to worry about losing my work, even if one of my 4 cats knocks over my cup of coffee on top of my laptop. And as in Google Docs, you can also use the document outline for navigation. And actually, when I first export my project to here, I've got my scene titles, and then eventually I get rid of them and then start thinking of chapters and chapter titles. And again, it's nothing fancy. It's just a word processor, but it does get the job done. It's also great for editing because you can highlight text or you can leave these little comments here so that when you're focusing on editing one thing on your draft, you can leave yourself a little note when you see something else that you need to fix in the future. So you're not going like, oh, this and this and this and this. Stay focused during editing always, and then keep these notes for future changes. Again, probably a subject for a different video, but there you go. So those are the 4 tools that I regularly use, but I wanted to add 2 more options for you. Reedsy Editor is something that I've used for my nonfiction books before, like my How to Write a Novel guide that you can find in my Etsy shop. But you can use it for fiction as well, obviously. There's a nifty little word tracker that you can use, for example, to track your progress automatically. But what this tool is best for is formatting your book. And it's great for self-publishing because it helps you create a professional-looking manuscript without you having to do the formatting yourself. For this video, I wanted to try a completely new software that I hadn't used before, and that is Wavemaker Cards. And to be honest, I had a bit of a difficult time figuring out how to use this software. It actually works better for me on browser than the separate thing that you need to download. For some reason, it wasn't letting me write anything on there. And you might want to watch a tutorial on how to use it. You know, obviously something different besides this video. But what I love about this is that if you like the idea of using note cards to plan your novel, this is the software for you. You get many different ways for organizing your cards, and then you can just pull them out while writing your draft. And this timeline function here is also very useful. If you're a more visual person, then this might just be the tool for you, and I will definitely be experimenting with it in the future. But you must have noticed already that there are no AI tools in this video, and these tools aren't using AI features. It's none of my business if you decide to use them, but in my opinion, you're more than capable of using your own brain, and we don't want to encourage using tools that are based on stealing other people's writing. So which one of these tools should you use? If you just want to jump into planning and writing your novel without bothering to learn like a whole new thing, how to use it, then Google Docs might just be your choice. To help you start off in a more organized manner, you could get my novel outline template from my Etsy shop. It has, I think, 12 guided sections that help you map out your protagonist's journey. If you're writing a romance novel or anything with an enemies to lovers type of arc, then I also have specific outline templates for those too. So do check them out. They have been quite popular and well loved. If you need to do a lot of research or world building, or you feel like you need to plan your settings and your characters in depth, then Notion is your choice. It's a fantastic place for storing all your research and ideas, and I used to use Evernote, but it became just incredibly expensive to use. The free plan gives you basically nothing. I'm really sad about that, but since there's no Evernote anymore, basically, then Notion would be my choice here. You don't need to settle for text. You can use images, probably audio as well, screenshots, links, anything. You could learn how to make databases of your own, but you'd also use someone else's template, like this simple novel planner that I created just for you. If you'd like a software that is made for writing novels but isn't difficult to master, then yWriter is your choice. It will help you keep your scenes in order and create a solid plot. And it's a much better choice for planning and writing your novel than just a straight up word processor if you're writing from multiple points of view, or maybe you've got these multiple timelines. So the more complex your story is, the better it is. But again, even if you're just writing a very simple story, this is still the perfect choice for you if this is something that you're looking for. You can use as many features as you want and need, and because it's free, it's not like you're throwing money away for not using all of them. Once you've written all your scenes, you can keep working on yWriter, but you could also export your project to use on a word processor like LibreOffice Writer, like I do, and then work on it there. If you're a more visual person and you don't mind having to learn to use something new, why not give Wavemaker Cards a try? And whatever you decide to use to plan and write your novel, if you're planning to self-publish, then Reedsy is great for formatting and exporting your novel in a professional manner. And here's the truth, I use multiple different tools for different writing projects and different parts of a single writing project. Even I don't think there's like the one best writing software for you. The best thing about all of these examples is that they're all completely free, so it's risk-free to try them out and see how they fit your personal workflow. Build your toolbox based on what works best for you and for your unique brain, not based on what some guy says is the best tool or what looks the most aesthetic. So go and make your choice and go write something. And if you'd like weekly writing tips for busy writers with no fancy degrees, do subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.